I am Ron Yutzi. I am very excited about this 5-day leadership enhancing journey that we're going to go on. And let me explain to you, because this is our first of 5 days, and they're not going to be all in a row. The dates will be there, and the Zoom link will be the same, so you'll be able to access this. But here's how this came about. I put together a course recently called Leadership Essentials. And how that came about was I had traveled within both the nonprofit community and the business community. And I was doing leadership workshops and seminars, both in churches and in hotels or in companies. And I did that for years. And I still do it, but did it for years. And there was something intriguing to me. I was always wanting to sharpen, always wanting to learn. And I felt like even though I was brought in as the speaker or the communicator in the workshop, I always wanted to hear from the people who were there, like why they came and what was important to them. And I would ask this question, from your experience, whether it was limited experience or whether they had a lengthy experience, from your experience, what do you see as the most important qualities that a leader needs to be effective in leading their teams or leading their organization or leading their church? And I would get them together in groups of between 5 and 8 and let them talk about it for, 6, 7 minutes. And then I'd ask them whether I had a whiteboard or I had a computer that went up on a screen. I would put the answers down and I would ask them, all right, what did you come up with? And there was usually 5 of them that they all came up with them. And one of them always distinguished itself above all the others. When I would ask him, if you had to pick one, which one would you do? Well, while I was doing that, I kept records of that. I kept notes of that. And I was looking at my own life and saying, what's interesting to me is I'm walking this same journey that they are in both the ministry world and in the corporate world. I was seeing these essentials, and it caused me to think, God made us as a human in such a way that there are only a limited amount of essentials that a human has to have to live. And if they don't have, whether they realize it or not, if they don't have those essentials, they can only live for a short period of time and the body begins to deteriorate and eventually will die. And I thought, okay, are there essentials to leadership development, regardless of whether you're leading a home, leading a church, leading a business, leading a team, leading an outreach? Are there things that are essentials that we can learn and that so many of us talk about them, but maybe didn't have it put down? Because I personally didn't have it written, didn't have it put down, even though I would teach on some of those essentials when I would do workshops. So that's where the Leadership Essentials course came about that I put together. And what I wanted to do with this 5-day leadership challenge is take a few of those essentials and unpack them for just a few minutes and then have a Q&A, because I found that these are really critical for leaders. And what I want to talk to you about today in this is vision, because that was one of the things that I always heard from leaders is you have to have vision. And you have to know how to communicate that vision. It can't just be an emotion. It can't just be something that excites you. You have to really see something. So I would ask, okay, what then is vision? And I would ask these leaders, if you had to define vision, what would you say? And I'll ask you, if you had to define what is vision, what would you say? What is vision? And I'll open the floor up.
Well, it's something definitely that you have to see in both your heart and your mind, and it has to be something that's real right now. But I think you can see the potential for it to develop and grow and increase, but it's got to be something that is already existent, but yet you see it bigger.
Thank you, Frank. Anybody else want to comment? What is vision, or how would you define vision?
I would say that vision is a picture that you have in your mind that you can articulate and communicate so that it literally takes that picture and imparts it into other people. I think a true visionary has an ability to communicate and connect so that it creates buy-in. It's so clear. It's almost like you're describing something to them, and it's like faith is the substance of things hoped for, right? It like literally takes it from there and it brings it here. And when it creates buy-in, it creates motivation, it creates giving, it creates like all kinds of things. So I think that's the power of a true leader is that they have the ability to paint that picture for people to move them towards something in faith most of the time.
Thank you. Um, what I did with this quality vision and why I call it an essential quality is because what vision does is it leads people to higher ground. That's what it does. Vision isn't just about what I see. Vision is about I am able to see beyond what is, to see what could or should be. So, in other words, I know what my current situation is, but there's a dream that's inside of me that's also inside of a group of people. Could be a church, could be a community, could be an organization. There's something that they see beyond where they are to what could or what should be. And a leader who possesses that vision is able to articulate that and motivate people as well as aligning them to that vision to get them to higher ground. So whether that higher ground is they produce a better product that services a group, a clientele, or it is a church that produces an environment and a message that is the community engages in, and it leads people to higher ground in their faith, or even in higher ground the way they impact a community. They see beyond where they are, meaning the leader vision, they see it and they believe it can happen. They know that there's a team that is needed to go there. And what they do is they communicate with individuals and with that team so that they rally together to move to higher ground. Let me say it in this regard, because I love this quote by Herminia Ibarra. And she says, the ability to envision possibilities for the future and share that vision with others distinguishes leaders from non-leaders. Because leaders, yes, you will lead yourself. That would be true. But a leader is leading a group. So the question has to be asked, well, where are they going? You know, when I in 2014, I was in 125 different cities in the United States alone. There were a couple other places that I went, but just in the United States, 125 cities doing primarily leadership and communication workshops and seminars. And those were 6-hour seminars in a day, and many of them were 2-day seminars. And so when that occurred, I knew I got into the city. I was in a hotel, but many times that city I had never been in before. Many of them, that was my first time that I had been in the city. So to get to the event where I was going to be speaking, you know, I had to pull out my GPS and I had to program in what the address was. And it said to me, all right, you get out, you turn here, you go to this, turn here. You know how that works. I bring that to you because that's exactly what leaders do with an organization, with a team of people, is that they see a destination, they see a higher ground, and they help navigate that team in steps to move in that direction so that there is an outcome that is achieved. You know, my outcome was obviously I was the speaker, so I needed to be at a certain location. And if I arrived successfully, which I did, then I was able to put on the event. Well, for organizations and churches and teams, they want to get to higher ground of service, higher ground of knowledge, higher ground of awareness, higher ground of fruitfulness. They're looking to achieve that. And a leader needs to both see the destination, not meaning a city, but seeing what the higher ground is, but also see the potential within the team that they're leading. Because all people have potential, which brings me to this. When we're talking about vision, we do ask ourselves, well, what do you see? What do you see in a year? Where would you like the team to be in a year or 6 months? And that really calculates and processes vision within a person's heart and in their thoughts. Where do I want to be in 6 months or a year? I don't recommend longer than that. I know people talk about 3 and 5 year. I think that with the way how fast things are and trends changing and the modifications that have to be made, all my coaching that I've done over the last few years is I encourage people stick to 6 months and a year, because if you get to that outcome in that time, you can always keep moving it forward another 6 months. And the other thing is people can celebrate the accomplishment. That's a good thing for them to happen, that they're able to celebrate it. So you ask, well, what do you see? What do you see, leader, first? And then you look at, what do you see within your team? What does the team see? Because those are key dynamics that need to, not only just what you see, what does the team see? Because if the team doesn't see what you see, that's where communication skills come in. And we'll talk about that in one of our 5-day challenges about communication. That's where communication comes in, to know how to cast vision, to know how to speak vision that excites and inspires people to want to be on board, to want to buy in, because they see the higher ground that wants to be achieved as well. And now they're pooling together to move forward. Tony Robbins said this about vision. He said, vision is one of the core leadership values. It's the dream and the direction for your company. Also, here's somebody coming in. We'll get him in here. It's what forms your company culture. It guides your decisions, and it helps you set and crush your goals. Now he's talking about vision. Vision is what inspires others to follow you. Why? Because they see the higher ground. They see that, okay, if I've got a leader that inspires me, if I've got a leader that helps guide decisions based on this vision that's moving us to higher ground, I may not agree with everything they say, but I don't have to. I can agree on the outcome that we want to achieve, and I can apply myself, because vision is one of the core values of leadership. Because without it, I like what he says here, work hard and make a difference. Vision is the thing that'll help your people work harder and make a difference, because they'll believe in it. So let me say this about vision. And I know I see some that you're taking notes, and this is great. Vision then has to be taking people on a journey. Vision doesn't stand still. It sees far, it sees a distance, and what we've defined it as, vision is the ability to see beyond what is to what could or should be. So I see that. Well, in that, it's going to take a journey to get there, both for you and the team you lead, the church you lead, the organization that you lead. It's going to take you on a journey. So whether you're building an organization, building a ministry, every journey is going somewhere beyond where you are right now. Other than that, you're standing still. And when you're standing still, you're not going anywhere. So vision has motion to it. It speaks in a way that it moves people in their heart. It moves them in their thinking, but then ultimately it's going to move them to take a journey together. If they're not taking the journey, there isn't really vision. It's just a collaboration of ideas that people are agreeing on, but they're not moving anywhere. They're kind of stationary and just talking about what they think and what they know, but it doesn't move them anywhere. So let me say this on why vision is so important as an essential quality to effective leadership. It's because here's the reality, folks, as leaders. The people you lead, they're on a journey in life. Whether they ever tell you it or not, they're on a journey. They want to be more fruitful. They want to be more successful. They want to see a better culture in their organization, in their home, in their church. They want to see something. It's in them. And that's the power of vision, is it can connect hearts and minds together that now move people together to set their hand to a project, to a work, to move toward that higher ground. See, leadership truly at its core is about vision. It is a necessity. To be a great leader, you must continually be taking your team on a journey of improvement, meaning improving the way they think, improving skills, improving what they see, improving what they believe, because you are going to need a team. And that team, again, remember vision, seeing beyond what is, that team has potential. You know, I pastored for years, and I was so fortunate because I pastored very successful churches. But I can be very transparent and honest with you. It doesn't start like that. I mean, the prayer is, God, bring me some great leaders right off the bat. Well, you know, great leaders did come, but I found that they came after people saw how I was able to grow, how I was able to navigate people together to impact a community with a message and with a care, with action, things that you did that you weren't asking for anything in return, but just wanted to make an impact. And what I found is that the people that rallied to both my leadership and to the church already saw what I was seeking to move toward. They already saw it. They just didn't know how to get there. They didn't know that. I mean, everybody would say in the community, yes, we want to impact our community with the gospel. We want to change life. They'd say it, but it was basically now just sit in church and invite people to come. Well, it's got to go a whole lot larger than that, right? And so I was able to help encourage people, and that's what I found. As we ended up discussing and collaborating, they already had that inside of them. And I realized, Lord, you brought me to be a leader that would be fearless and have courage to lead the charge. But really, they already see this. Like they would have been willing to buy in if somebody else would have done it. But there were the apprehensions, they had bad experiences, the lack of trust. I mean, the list can go on, and we're not here to talk about that. What I am saying is that when they saw that I was seeing what was already in their heart, that they believed they were praying for, that God put in there, it made it much smoother for us to work together, even through our cultural differences, even through the social differences, even through racial differences, even through the financial status of people. I mean, it was an amazing thing to watch, all because people got connected to a vision. And that's why vision is so important at our level. So let me say this to you. Proverbs 29, verse 18 says, without a vision, the people perish. What's interesting about that verse in Proverbs is the perishing doesn't mean they go to hell. Now, that's possible, but that the word perish means to let go of their grip, to loosen up. In other words, they were focused on something, they're going to move in a certain direction, but without vision coming to them and being communicated, they lower their resistance and they let go and they get more lackadaisical. What does that tell us? That tells us that even God devised vision because he gave us the eyes to see. He devised it to know that there is always higher ground than where you are right now. There's always improvement that can make your life better, an organization better, a church better, a team better, a family better. It can always happen. But the question becomes, but do you see it? Because if you're only a prophet of the obvious that's happening in front of you, that really doesn't take a lot of awareness. People end up just complaining then. What does require a skill is the vision. So I want to kind of wrap this up and let you ask me some questions by saying this. How do leaders really help their people with seeing beyond what is to what could or should be? Leaders do it by, first of all, they realize that they're going to improve what the team sees. Good people, your team, good people, church, good people, organization, good people. But they may see through a certain filter that limits the potential of an organization, limits the potential of a team. So what does a leader do? A leader helps improve what they see. You know, Aristotle said this: the soul never thinks without a picture. Interesting. God created us that way. The mind can only think and see in pictures, not words. When you say a word, if I say car, did you think of CAR or did you think of a car, an actual vehicle? See, that's how we're wired. We see things in picture. That's a part of vision. We help improve what they see, because if they are in limited thinking, then we have got to raise that limited thinking to possibility thinking. How do we do that? I don't have them in front of me right now, but here's how we do that. It's having the compassion for those players to know that, you know what they need? They just need some corrective eyewear. You know, like the rest of us do as we get older or sometime in life. You know, we used to be able to see a certain thing pretty clear, and then it gets a little dimmer along the way. A couple of years ago, every couple of years, I go into the eye doctor, you know, and usually it's because they email me multiple times to go, hey, you haven't been here in a few years. You need to come and get your eyes checked out. And it happens every time I go. I walk in the door, you know, they're kind, you fill out the stuff, and then they bring you to that room where there's that chart on the wall with all those letters. And then they say, all right, Mr. Yutzi, take off your glasses, cover one of your eyes, and tell us which one can you read. And then I read one that's maybe 4 down, you know, big enough that I can see them. And then they'll say, okay, can you read the next one down? And then I do my best to read the next one down. And when I read the next one down, I see the look on their face and they go, okay, let's try the other eye. So then you try the other eye, right? And what you find out is they tell you, yeah, you didn't see that really well. But what happens? They enhance your prescription for those corrective lenses. For what reason? To see what already is there. The letters were already on the wall. It's just my vision was impaired, that I could only see to a certain level. And then anytime they asked me to go below, my vision was impaired. I didn't see it clearly. That's what leaders do. We help people by improving what they see. Instead of seeing a limited arena, we help them see possibility. Instead of them looking at themselves as if they can't do something, they couldn't achieve, they're not good enough, we help them see that, yeah, you are. Just take some action steps. Just takes a little bit of work. And if you'll do this, this is what you can experience. And here's how that's going to help, not just you, but help the team, help the organization, help the mission. And as they begin to see it, what you did without telling them is you were putting corrective lenses on them, improve what they see. What else do leaders do with people? They improve what they can do. You see, progress in any area is a skill development. No matter what it is, progress requires that action is taken. I think differently, and therefore I begin to act differently, or I talk differently. My relationships may become better enhanced, but that doesn't come overnight by desire. Desire is good, and we need to have that. But we have to help people move into what they can do. They move into action. And that means, as a leader, we've got to invest time in them. Time that imparts knowledge, time that imparts encouragement, time that imparts belief in them, because then they may not believe in themselves. It's interesting. I don't want to get it. It's in the Leadership Essentials course. I share this from Psychology magazine, but it's interesting how in psychology, what they have found is the majority of people who live on planet Earth don't believe in themselves. Now, they may come off showing that, oh, they're confident, but when they get them into behind closed doors and really start to unpack and talk to them, most people don't believe in themselves. And you know what they're looking for? Somebody who does.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who does. And that's what leaders do. They believe in them and they increase their confidence, which will increase their contribution as they're on that journey to improve. Okay, remember how we started today, and now I want to open it up for some Q&As. Vision is all about leading people, leading teams, leading an organization, leading a ministry, leading it to where? To higher ground. That's what it's about. The seed of vision that gets communicated by our words and then nurtured by our actions, the seed of vision has the power to germinate in a human heart, has the power to germinate in a team, in an organization, has the power to grow roots. And that from those roots, as it gets rooted in that vision, it's able to push up from the surface, push up from that which seems to be limiting it, so that it can blossom and bear the intended fruit that the organization, the individual, the ministry is intending to achieve. It leads people, organizations, and ministries to higher ground. Okay, now let me open it up for any Q&A for a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I talked about this evening so far?
So when you begin to share the vision that you have, how do you know how much of that to share? Like if it's so big that people can't accomplish it, like you said, in 6 months or a year, do you emphasize what is possible in the short term? And I guess probably sometimes I have the problem of sharing everything, and then it's too much to bear. And then
that is a great question. And the answer is yes, you share vision in stages. Okay, and here's why. The people that you're leading, if they just get excited about it, but it doesn't mature in them, then it's kind of like the Energizer Bunny. They get excited, but they're moving around, but nothing's happening really. It's just excitement. Vision will get people excited, but it moves beyond excitement, because then it's got to move into commitment and it moves into sacrifice, right? Those are qualities that people, they will have when they buy in, because the value of that higher ground is something they want to achieve. So you communicate vision in stages where you know the people are able to absorb it. It's inside of you. That's a good thing. And in those stages, you do that then in a next stage. Thinking about it from this perspective, any of you on the call, if you have children, when your children learn to eat, and I'm talking like moved beyond the soft food and started to eat more solid food, you didn't go get a steak and cut it and have them eat it. They can't digest it. It's going to hurt them. It's too much. But there is going to come a day that they might really enjoy that. But that's not the day. So a leader has to have that awareness that I know what that higher ground is. I know what it is. And I'll give you an example for this, and maybe this will help you. And I'm thinking about it because we had to do this. I was hearing people saying, we want to make an impact. We want to make an impact, and we're going to bring people to church, which was great. Wanted them to invite people to church. But what I was noticing is their mind was kind of set on it. If they could just hear Ron speak, like that's going to make the difference. Well, I'm sure it would help, and it made. But what I was noticing is that I wanted them to share their Christ story. They're going to impact people more than I am. I mean, if they come to a service, I'm grateful. And our church services in 10 years, they grew every single month in attendance for 10 years. It was amazing to watch happen. But it wasn't huge. It was, here's what we did. I realized they don't have confidence sharing their story. They think they need to be a minister like me. They think they need to communicate the Bible like me. No. So my encouragement was literally, and I did this by having services. We did it in a midweek service, and then we would break it out in small groups as well, helping them to communicate their Christ story. How did Christ come into your world? And if you could learn how to just tell your story is going to be just as valuable as mine, because it's the same Christ that changed our world. Don't share my story. I mean, you could, but that just because you shared my story doesn't mean it's going to work. Share yours. So I realized we had to move them in increments. And as they got confident, it was amazing to watch that in small groups, people were coming to Christ who had never come to the church ever. They came to the group because they invited them and they knew them and that. So I'd say, let yourself keep dreaming. Like, don't ever stop that, and let it keep growing inside of you. But realize when you're communicating to the people, do it in stages where they're able to absorb it, that you're able to see, okay, good. I see a level of excitement in this that I haven't seen, higher ground. I see a level of commitment in this, great, higher ground. Okay. When you see that, and then continue, even though it's real to you, then move it past that and then go to the next step. So I'd say, think of it in stages, because every step they will mature, they will grow, and so will you with them, and so will you in your ability to communicate vision. And I did exactly one of the things that you just brought up. Man, when I first got to the community, I was so excited. I was so passionate. I felt like I spilled everything I knew and everything I could on them. And you realized, okay, like I said, they would get excited because I was excited, but it wasn't getting us any closer to making the impact that I wanted to see. They just agreed with me, and yeah, we wanted. So now we got to take steps in achieving it. But thank you for your question. Great question. Did I answer your question?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Hi, yes. Anyone else?
To the point of what you just talked about with, do you share the whole thing? I think it's important that you tell them the destination on the GPS, like what you said, right? But a GPS doesn't just take you from here to here. It says, okay, here's where we're going, but just here's the next turn, right? Then here's the next strip, and then you're going to go this many miles. And I think that ties in to what you said earlier, is it gives them achievable goals. And when they see that, that's what breeds confidence. That's what, it builds credibility, I think, for the leader, because it's like, hey, this is where we're going, and we just got one step closer together. Yay, right? Okay, because we're here. Now let's go here. So I think it's important, especially for a church or a ministry, that they know the vision and the purpose of that. But I can just tell you from being parts of things like that, in the beginning, you can articulate the vision by your words, like recite it, but it doesn't mean you get it yet until you're practicing it. And the more you do it, to your point, it just stretches you to go, okay, maybe this is a possibility, right? And that vision inside them, like what you said, presses through and germinates. And it's like, okay, now it's just a seedling. And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But every step is still taking you towards the bigger vision without, freaking them out. So that's
well, I appreciate that, what you're sharing. That is, the GPS example is a great example, because you could have at 1 mile turn right, 3 miles turn left. So you could have multiple turns, adjustments, direction that you got to go in order to get to where you want to go. And leadership does that with its people, because, businesses, ministries, you can have turnover. You can see people come, you could see people go, you could see new staffing positions, and you got to now modify. The destination or vision doesn't change. But what steps we're going to take to get there may modify, because we're still moving forward. but you got to do it in stages, you know. And when you get you turned right, woohoo, all right, great. Then it talks to you. Okay, now in 3 miles, turn left, and it tells you the road. Okay, well, 3 miles, you're not going to get 3 miles in 2 seconds. So, and as leaders, and I'm speaking to myself as well, if we're not careful, we'll try to push them farther, or faster is probably a better word, push them faster than maybe they're able to handle it. And that would not be a good leadership move on our part, because they're moving, and we're going to just keep, that 3 miles is going to be, if you're going 60 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour, it's going to be a time difference, but we're still moving toward that. So great point. Thank you for that. Does anybody else have a question? I just put in the chat, if you know how to pull up the chat, this is our Zoom link for all of our 5-day leadership challenges. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if based on like what we talked about tonight, and tomorrow we're going to talk about the power of influence. Leaders have influence, and we're going to talk about what is influence, who do we influence, where do we influence them, and why do we want to influence them? We're going to discuss this for a bit, and then we'll do the same, do a Q&A. But I put that in there, the link, because there could be people that didn't know about this, and you may want to share it with them and say, hey, you want to join this call? It's only 45 minutes, but it's something that it's worth the investment. I think it'll be a really good leadership enhancing journey for you if you put the time in. So the link is there. You can always copy it and send it to anybody that you feel would benefit. Another thing is the Leadership Essentials course that I put together. If you go on to actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put another one in the chat. I'm going to put another link in the chat. And this link I'm giving, we're offering this. Okay. We talk about vision in a whole chapter. The course is 8 chapters, video chapters with beautiful downloadable PDFs of notes that I give. And what happens is that course, vision, is 1 chapter, and 1 chapter has 3 video sessions of between 12 and 20 minutes. So you're looking at between possibly 48 minutes to an hour as you go through them. And you can go through them on your own time. So there's no rush. But the course is an investment you would have to make, because I do talk about vision. Like, for example, I talk about in the course that we didn't get into tonight, what is the driving force behind all great human endeavors? What is it? Well, it is vision. But why? Why is it? We talk about that. How do leaders cast vision? We talk about the difference between vision and a strategy. Vision is your outcome, your goal. That's what you want. But a strategy are the steps to get there. You don't marry the steps. You marry the vision. The steps are going to be modified. The steps will change. The strategy will be adjusted because life happens. Trends change. People change. So if you get locked into a strategy, even though it's necessary, it could derail you and frustrate the people. And we talk about what are the differences, because they're both needed. But what's the difference between vision and strategy? And then I talk about in that course, on that chapter, 4 crucial areas that there has to be an alignment with your team to the vision. What are those 4 areas? And they're critical, because you're always, as a leader, you will always be massaging and touching those 4 areas to make sure that the vision is clear. And it takes work. I mean, just because they can repeat it or repeat a mission statement doesn't mean they got the vision. So, and that's in the course. So here's what I did. I put a link. If you are interested in purchasing that Leadership Essentials course, you can go to that link. For a limited time, I'm offering $50 off the course for anyone who signs up. If you use that link, it'll immediately take the $50 off. You could even pay in payments. It's on the site there. If this is something that you believe would be of interest to you, I encourage you to sign up for that course. I think it would absolutely be extremely valuable to you, because everything we talk about in in our 5 day is unpacked in much more broader and more detailed sense, more practical sense that you could actually sink your teeth into, because we just don't have all the time to be able to do it in a discussion like this. Okay. Does anybody have, before we wrap this up, does anybody have any questions or comments on tonight?
Something that excited me when you said vision has motion. And probably the most frustrating thing for me is that from the time that I share the vision until I see momentum, until we actually see something happening, that's probably the most frustrating time. I like it when the momentum hits, but until then. So I think then you shared. So I was thinking that, and then you shared that apart about you don't marry the strategy, you marry the vision. So then I was okay. I thought, well, I think that's in the answer there. And so sometimes when I say, okay, so these steps that I told you on how to get there, we're talking about it now. Obviously, we need to adjust this. And sometimes they think I'm changing the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And that's frustrating to me because then I have to explain it. I feel like I got to explain it another way. I know it doesn't come through me lecturing it or preaching it or saying it all the time. I've got to work with them and explain it in a small group or,
But you're right. You're spot on. That, like, I lead teams and I still do this. It is not anything you ever get away from. Even when they are motivated, it's still because there are nuances within an organization where new people come. People are added to a team, added to a department, right? Or new initiatives come about. And so people they want to get involved. They get excited about it. That, what you just said, marrying the vision, that what that simply is just having a proper alignment with the vision of the organization, the vision of the team, the vision of the ministry, and then the steps will always be adjusted, but steps have to execute the motion to move toward the vision, but they're adjusted. And I think if just my comment on food for thought, I really think that just for what you just said, the course would be worth it for you when we cover that in that chapter for this reason. We talk about the distinctions, and one of the things you said, I mentioned, is that the adjusting of the strategy steps never changes. It's always going to happen, always. And I say it from this perspective. It's like a car. Cars need alignment just because of use. I mean, they could use alignment if they run into a curb, bump into, hit a bad pothole. There's a lot of reasons why a car needs an alignment. And if you don't get it aligned, the minute you take your hands off the wheel, it's going to move in a direction and it can be a terrible situation that's coming. So what do? You need a service professional to give an alignment. That's what leaders do. They are the service professionals that just because of time, just because of use, it's going to require alignments, which doesn't mean you didn't change the vision. The car didn't change. You did it to protect the life inside of it. You did it so that there wouldn't be an accident. You did it so that the car can drive more smoother. That's what those alignments do, and we never get away from them as a leader. If we could, I would tell you, but if you find a way, I would love to know, but I have not been able to find a way. It is just something we got to live with. But I think that distinguishes leaders. We understand that. So, but thank you for sharing that. Yes, ma'am. You got anything you want to share?
Okay. I don't think I should talk about it.
All right. Well, I had fun.
Wait, I have one more thing.
Okay.
So I just want you to know that I was super challenged by even with the car analogy is, vision. It forces if you're leading, it forces you to answer questions before you cast the vision because the people that you want with you are going to ask those questions. And so I'm thinking, the questions as a leader that we need to answer is like, who do we need and what do we need? Like, because if you know who you need, to the point when you said we think in images, if we say to somebody, I want a car, somebody might think of a Ferrari and somebody might think of a Ford F-150, right? But as we're articulating, okay, but this is what we need and this is who we need, then you're going to refine that vision. No, we
Yes.
want this kind of car with this kind of wheel. And the more, I think for us, the more, like what I said at the beginning, we paint the picture, then they know what to look for. It puts it in their particular activator. But that was really a challenge for me to say, am I doing that? Like, I know that, but am I doing that? So,
And we will talk about that when we talk about communication. And I think that's going to be on Monday. Next Monday's call. We'll talk about that on communication. I believe that's day 4. It's either day 3 or day 4. So, but that's going to be something we will talk about, is how clarity comes by communication, meaning the words that I use, your words are like brush. It paints a picture and gives color on the canvas of people's minds and hearts. And that's why communication skills become so vital, what we're doing. Hey, did you enjoy this tonight? Yeah,
yes.
I did too. Yeah, I did too. Woohoo! So why don't you take the link of the Zoom call, share it with somebody that you know. They can join the call tomorrow, as we're going to talk about influence, the power of influence. Leaders have influence, and they can either raise their influence or decrease it, just depending on how they lead. And we're going to talk about that more tomorrow. Also, if you're interested in the course, the link is there. As long as it's going to be up, meaning the early bird registration, you can save $50 off the regular price. And being somebody, I know I created the course, but it's well worth it. It took many, many years of hard knocks. And I thought, I want to pull this out and share everything I possibly can about the essentials that I see and other leaders see, because it's not something I hear a lot about, is essentials of leadership. I hear things talked about it, but what are those real essentials that will raise our level of skill and influence with the people that we lead? And I hope that I've been able to help you tonight, and I'm thankful that you joined us. So until tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.